Good evening, and welcome to Envisioning Equity. My name is Cuevas Peacock, and I serve here at Baylor University as the Assistant Director of Community Relations and Cultural Wealth. It is our privilege to have you join us today in our second of this Envision Equity series, where we will be examining inequities within our education system. We have a very esteemed panelist today that I am excited to jump into. However, prior to us starting, there are a couple of housekeeping rules and event reminders that I would like to share with you. The first is that this event is presented in webinar mode, where you will only be able to see the panelists and presenters, and your video and audio will remain muted. We welcome questions, and we ask questions to be submitted through the Q&A function. And while we will see these questions, do know that no one else will. And last is that the event is being recorded, and that only those who are a part of our panel will be viewed on a recording. Here at Baylor, our mission statement is to educate men and women for worldwide leadership and service by integrating academic excellence and Christian commitment within a caring community. Through our department here at Baylor, the Department of External Affairs, we help to do this not only on campus, but within the Waco community. And as a result, I'm a part of the Solid Gold Never initiative, where we seek to bridge the Baylor family with the Waco family in areas of economic development, education, health, city growth, and cultural wealth. Cultural wealth, really looking at how can we celebrate diverse communities, how can we facilitate conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how can we simply advance race equity. But in order to do that well, there are some clear definitions that we must remain aware of. The first is diversity. What is diversity? It is the presence of differences that may include race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and language. Our next definition I want to make sure that we are all aware of is inclusion. Inclusion is the outcome to ensure those that are diverse actually feel and are welcome. Inclusion outcomes are met when you, your institution, and your program are truly inviting to all. To the degree to which diverse individuals are able to participate fully in the decision-making processes and development opportunities within an organization or group. And lastly, while we are all here, is equity. Equity includes the elimination of policies, practices, attitudes, and cultural messages that reinforce differential outcomes by race or fail to eliminate them. Equity is promoting justice, partiality, and fairness within the procedures, processes, and distribution of resources by institutions or systems. Equity is the condition that would be achieved if one's racial identity no longer predicted in a data sense how one fares. When we use the term, we are thinking about racial equity as one part of racial justice. And thus we also include work to address, thus we must also include work to address root causes of inequities, not just their manifestation. Tackling equity issues requires an understanding of the root causes of outcome disparity within our society. It is through the Envision Equity series that we hope to gain a better understanding of the root causes of disparities within our systems and discuss possible solutions for eliminating them. In order to get there, again, we have a very esteemed panelist that would be helping us start conversation around inequities within our local education system. In order to do that well, we have our moderator, Mr. Herman Pereira. Herman's a good friend, he's an educator, he is a leader, and he's currently serves as the Senior Specialist for Educational Initiatives at Prosper Waco. Herman, thank you for being here. We are excited for you to have you lead this conversation.
Happy to join you, my friend. Like many others say, when Cuevas asks, we don't say no. So we're happy to be here. This is a great time to be amongst friends. And I have an all-star cast. We have Travis Cheatham, who's a famous support specialist at WISD. Principal Isabella Lozano, who's another principal at Waco ISD. We have Principal Alonzo McAdoo here as well with us at WISD. And we have a retired person who's worn many hats and is a legend in the education space in this area, Dr. Hazel Rowe. and then myself. I'll be moderating this panel and talking about this conversation in general. We hope to have a conversational time with you today, and we have lots of things to jump into. So I want to frame the situation we're talking about here. Education is a broad topic, and we can get into this and spend hours upon hours diving into different things. But we want to look at the part of education that's one of the most crucial pieces, which are the teachers. What is our teachers' workforce looking like nowadays in Waco? And I wanted to share with you some slides, and there's a slide up right now, and it kind of just shows you the current picture where we're at right now. And those demographics, if you show to you, we're looking at about a total of 43,000 teachers right now. I'm sorry, students in McLennan County, and there's about 41,000 teachers in McLennan County as well. The part that's not matching up is when you look at the student demographics, they don't represent, they aren't representative in our teacher workforce. I don't mean to point that out to say who's at fault for that, because nobody really is. But it's something that we need to better understand of each other, of our systems, what are the practices, and how do we embed equity? And so when you see those numbers and you see the disproportionate rates that our students of color and our staffs of color are, there's issues with that. And so we're hoping to tackle some of those issues today. We're going to have a conversation and have an open dialogue. There's really some great effects that diversity has in our teacher workforce. And my next slide here will kind of highlight that. And some of these things are the things that aren't the quantitative data. This is the other things that happen. And so obviously academics, we're going to see improved academics and test scores, graduation rates, just overall higher academic achievement when we have more diversity in our teacher workforce. There's emotional positive as well. Students feel more cared for and maybe decreased sense of isolation and frustration when they see somebody who looks like them as teachers and around their classrooms. And also behavioral. There's just less likely to have discipline issues, and a lot of the data has shown that. And so we're trying really hard to examine these things, and we're going to jump in this conversation. Again, we're going to pop around, answer these questions. I have a great group of folks here. So again, thank you all for joining me, and we'll kick it off. So Alonzo, you're going to have the first question. You'll kick it off for us, all right? What drew you to the education profession?
I think there's a number of factors that drew me to the educational profession, but it's one specific moment that impacted me, and that's when I was a student myself in Waco ISD. And I think about a teacher that wanted to push me and challenge me, but she said something to me with such confidence that it stayed in me. And that was Miss Jocelyn Bennett, when she stated that, she said, Alonzo, you're either going to be a teacher or the president. And I went, me teaching? I was like, she just said that, like, and that moment right there, it just stuck with me. And as I entered to the college arena, I decided which path I wanted to go into. And I just believe in serving leadership. And when I got an opportunity to come back home from Kansas, it was just like, it was meant to be for me. So that moment changed me in my 10th grade year. So
that's great. And panelists, if you want to follow up on something that's said, please jump in. I'll keep the questions rolling, but we're all friends here. So if you want to follow up, just say, hey, Herman, I want to follow up on that. Question number 2, Dr. Rowe, I'll direct it to you. What do you envision equity looking like in the role of it in education? What do you envision equity looking like in education?
Well, one of the things you described earlier on the chart graph that you showed us was hopefully that there are more role models and mentors in the classroom, so that when kids enter the classroom, they see people who look like them or who look like their families. And so I think that's one of the observable things that we want to see as far as meeting the needs of kids. And the other thing I think when we talk about envisioning equity is meeting the needs of each student. Teachers are very adept at doing that. They know who needs visual learning, they know who needs auditory learning, they know who needs a tactile environment. And so I think providing those perspectives and differentiating instruction for students brings about equity. And it also brings about their sense of success, because we know that once kids are successful, they want to continue to do that. So I think those are some factors that we can look at in envisioning equity in the classroom.
Absolutely. Any follow-ups to that question, or maybe a story of when you saw that connection when somebody looked like you in the classroom, possibly?
I might just tack on. I tried to ask some of the teachers on our campus their thoughts on some of these questions, and just get their feel. And one of the things that one of the teachers said was having students, family, faculty, and staff collaborate as one. And when we can do that across all demographics, that you're truly getting that parent buy-in, you're getting students, staff, everybody on the same page, is truly like showing a sign of equity regardless of demographics.
It's a great point, Travis. Thank you for saying that. And we're going to direct next question to you, Travis. So how can teacher candidates who may bring bias into their work avoid making those mistakes? So these are new teachers stepping into a teacher preparation program.
Yeah, and I'm going to start the same way as getting one of the teachers their response on that. And that's simply, showing genuine interest in their students, asking them about their interests, about, their community, things that they do, and just developing those relationships. That's going to be the core, across the board is relationships and how valuable they are. But I would add on, the leadership that we have on the campus, on the district, to lead these conversations. To me, it's not a matter of if teachers are going to bring bias into their workplace. Bias, prejudice, that's a natural part of life. Everybody has that. And so we need to already be thinking about that as, we're having staff. I appreciate the work that different people are doing. I've heard different initiatives from Dr. Kincannon. I know Transformation Waco is leading a discussion on equity, like across races right now. And so we need to see more of that leadership that's doing top down to make sure we're having these discussions with our staff.
Absolutely. And I think being okay with saying, I don't have all the answers and I don't have all the right answers to say. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to engage in a conversation. That's how we better understand ourselves as human beings. And of course, that's the number one way to really build rapport with students is to build that relationship. And so that's great. Principal Lozano, next question's for you. COVID-19 has highlighted longstanding equity issues in historically marginalized communities and communities of color. What are the ways that schools and communities can help bridge those gaps in this time?
I think a way is understanding that not every child comes with the same resources. And so that's why we need to provide access to resources and connect our families with resources either on school or in the community. Also providing students individualized supports. They all come with different needs. They're not all the same. And so I think that's a big part.
Is there anything that you or Alonzo or Dr. Rowe have y'all done for your staffs to better understand those gaps that students may come from or different backgrounds?
Yeah, just try to share with them first data when they first arrive. We go through and just look at trends and see what's happening so we can first be aware and know how we can respond. And emphasis on responding, what we do is once you show somebody the data, then you have to be able to provide them with the tools to be successful. And within our district, there's been several tools that we can apply to help enhance the learning progress of our students through mainly starting with our lesson plan alignment, making sure that as an educator, we have those things aligned to the way they should be tested. And then we can go from there to launch into meeting students' needs in all areas. So.
With me also, go ahead, Dr. Rowe.
I'm sorry. One of the things that I have heard since I'm in the community is the importance of communication. So I think as long as schools are aware that parents really do care and that communities are out there willing to provide a bridge to those campuses, I think communication is also a big part of what we can do. Right now, I'm tutoring a group of students who they think they're falling behind, but they're really not. But I think being willing to step in there and help the schools do the work that they are trying to do is a big part of this, especially during COVID-19.
One of my personal stories was my first day as a new teacher orientation at Conley ISD. They put us on a bus and said, we're going to
Yeah.
tour this district. And I had no idea, being new to Waco, that there were some households that had dirt floors.
Right.
I'm like, this is 2005. Like, what is going on? And so that understanding, when those students enter the classroom, I'm like, I'm hugging them all. I'm like, I got you. I'm here for you, you know? And so understanding that perspective is big. Travis, you want to share about the bridging the gap of technology in this day and age right now as we've gone to virtual learning? I know you've done a lot of that work from your perspective and from the district. Share some of that.
Yeah, a whole lot. And so, I mean, one of the biggest things the district's done, at least for Waco ISD, is trying to go one-to-one, which just means every student has a device and that they can take it home. So that way you're prepared, even if you're an in-person student, that you can go home and be able to work if you have to quarantine or whatever that might entail. Another big piece of that has been getting hotspots to families, and so making that available through the district. So I've definitely been appreciative of how many the district's gotten, and trying to get that more and more available for families. A big thing that we noted in the spring that I say is the spring was a distinguishing moment when you realized that technology and access to the internet was no longer something that people like to use, but it's a true necessity. And so if we don't have that across the district, then like our families are really unable to do their work. One thing I want to add to that piece is just simply that we need more parent education, because I get calls every day from a parent of like, I don't know how to do X, and how to resolve this. And part of that is just troubleshooting skills. Some things, aren't intuitive, but there's others that like, in teaching parents even how to start their own email, like create an email address and start following it. We currently have at least over 100 parents that don't use email on our campus. And that's big because that's one of the easiest ways for us to possibly get information out, especially long information.
That's a great point. I'm glad you brought up the just going to online learning. It's like you're leading me to my next question. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Travis, for moving along. Alonzo, next one's for you. Teacher prep programs are happening virtually nowadays. You can go and become a teacher on an online program. How do you envision equitable teaching with regards to online learning?
For educators or for students?
You can go either way on this one. I'll give it to you. You choose.
Well, for future educators, I think that in the same sense for students, there's one word that comes to my mind, and that is the word change. And what's happening and what I'm seeing is as these things progress is that there's progress being made in this area. There's progress being made in this area, and education is evolving to match the needs that we see students meet. Like Travis just brought up, the idea of saying that you need internet or you would like to use it is no longer an option. You need it in the 2020 school year. And so those needs are what's going to shape our platforms that we use for students. Those needs are what's going to make things more equitable for teachers, for students, because as time continues to progress, we find out ways to cut things out, trim it, and make it more user-friendly for students. And I think as we progress, and I know on our campus, in our district, like we were talking about creating a standard use for Canvas as far as laying it out for teachers to be, students to be able to see. I think as time continues to progress, that effort in trying to make things easier in a sense of user-friendly for students is going to make the platform equitable. That's what I believe. And with that, as those platforms continue to be used and used over and over again, they're going to be designed to even fit students' needs individually more so as we progress. They'll be tailored to fit. Because like you can go through a platform now, and I always had this question. I know you can receive a degree online. I know you can receive a teaching degree certification online, but can a K through 12 student learn and get a high school diploma? Can that happen? And that question today is being answered. It's being answered with a strong yes. It is possible. And with that happening, we have to be pioneers in this area to make sure that it is equitable, not for those students that get it at home, but for any student to log on to be equitable.
Seems like the phrase, that's the way we've always done it, has to be thrown out. Like that one's gone. Like no more of that crutch. It is, it's a new day for sure.
And Herman, one of the things that I'd like to point out, having taught in programs that prepare teachers for the education profession, is yes, it can be done online. I think a model that is now being thrown around is that word hybrid, that there's some experience online, but then there's an opportunity for students at some point to get to see an actual classroom or to do some observing in a regular classroom so that they get a practical idea of what the theory looks like in action. So I think a hybrid model is one that will allow us to be able to do a little of that.
And I think it's doable. And I think with this panel, we're hoping to reach folks that may see this and go, you know what? I've thought about being a teacher. Why don't I give it a try? And I think we would all say we welcome that. We want more
Exactly.
talent in this area, McLennan County, at this district, and all across our districts. But I think people have to embrace that and go along. And we're looking for more talented people to step into the workforce because it really does matter. I mean, every other career path starts in the schoolhouse. And so it's where everything else goes from. Isabel, I'll ask you the next question. If I ask teachers across our community, what would they say they are doing to make their classrooms equitable? What do you think? What do you think they would say?
I really feel like teachers are really getting to know their students on an individual basis, like building relationship, knowing or getting used to like their culture. For example, I'm in a school where it's in South Waco, majority it's a Hispanic community. And our teachers are very receptive to the Hispanic community. I know with me growing up and still living in this neighborhood, I always share my experiences. For example, I remember getting in trouble in elementary school because I wasn't looking at my teacher in the eyes. Look at me and look at my eyes. But whenever I was scolded at home, I had to look down. My parents had to give me permission to look at them in their eye. And so that's a cultural thing. That's something that they don't understand. You know, to me, if I would have been staring at my parents, that would have been disrespectful. And so just sharing stories, the teachers really appreciate that. Just being transparent and sharing stories about different cultures. I see a lot of our teachers, they shop in the community. I see them down the street at HEB, or they go to games. The students, I've even seen some teachers where they're going to quinceañeras. You know, when I was at the middle school and secondary, they go to quinceañeras because I really truly feel that they want to be part of the community and understand the culture.
Yeah, that's a great point. Any other stories about how teachers are building those great relationships?
I think that there are still teachers who, believe it or not, do home visits.
Yes.
That they go to the students' homes in communities, and the kids are quite surprised that their teachers are at the door. But it really builds a relationship between the family, and it supports that student as well. So, I mean, I've seen that still occurring in the African American community where they are really going out to the homes.
Yes, we've knocked on several doors.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's great. Dr. Rowe, I'll ask you the next question. What are things that educators wish families understood about the school system?
I think one of the things that we wish they understood about the school system is that we are not as independent as they may think we are, and that we need them to be in partnership with us. And the word is partnership. We want them to be a part of the school and not just think that we are a place to send their kids to. So I think that's one of the big things. And even at the high school level, that's an important thing for us to consider. We used to have a PTAs and that, but that, of course, is not as viable as it once was. But there are a lot of efforts. There are parent educators in most school campuses. There are efforts at the central office to make opportunities for parents to participate. So I think we just have to keep working at recruiting them to come to our schools and understanding that the parents are not your mindset of a parent, but they may be younger, they may be very young, they may be grandmothers, but there's a lot of diversity in parents, so we need to be able to address those issues as well so that they feel comfortable coming to school. So I don't,
That's a great point. Anybody want to add on to that? What are the things that we wish, just from the education from this side of the fence, we wish families knew about schools and what goes on?
yes, we do.
I think
Go
the
ahead.
thing that we really, really care about the success of all of our students. Our vision is always to see all of our kids succeed and be successful.
And I wish parents just knew how much power they have,
Yes.
how much influence they can have, like on a school, by being involved. And that goes both ways of, with their decisions they make, and then decisions they don't make, how that, can impact a campus. So them not being involved can impact our campus as well.
And I think what you're saying and what I agree with is that we need to help them be advocates for their students.
Yeah.
And know
Absolutely.
how to access the system to get the things they need. And I absolutely agree with that.
And also, I think as a school system, we have to provide different opportunities for parents, because we have parents that work in the afternoon, some that work at night. I remember back when I started working with Waco ISD, I was 18. I had 3 children by the age of 25, struggling going to school, being a secretary, and I would go clean apartments at Baylor Lofts to try to make it. So I cared for my children. I loved my children. I wanted to be involved, but because of my resources, I couldn't. So it wasn't that I didn't want to, it's just I couldn't. And so, but I would always answer the phone if I was always available that way, but I just couldn't physically be in the schoolhouse.
Agree.
Powerful story. Do you have a comment, Alonzo? I saw you hit unmute there for a second. No, okay, you good. Isabel, I'm going to ask you the next one. How do we encourage and recruit people of color to choose education so that our pipeline is stronger and that we have employees that represent our student populations?
I feel like being just role models and really growing our own students. About 2 years ago, I was sent to recruit down in the Rio Grande Valley new teachers. So I went to several universities down in the McAllen, Brownsville area, and it was hard. Coming from a very traditional Hispanic, Mexican American family, we really don't move. We stay with our families. It's really hard to move away. And so I feel that our district's vision is going in the right direction. I know there's talks about building our own. I know we have a grow your own program, and I feel that that is the way to do it, is growing our own. And it starts with elementary and just, what do you want to be? And talking about high school, I know one of our goals here in our campus improvement plan is to make sure that every student knows the year that they're going to graduate from high school. So it has to start at elementary. And from there, in high school, I know the University High School has Ready, Set, Teach program where they have their students that come on campus. This year, it looks a little bit different. They're reading virtually to our kids or doing little things like that. It's so different with the pandemic. But before that, it was that they would come once a week and they would help. They were like teacher assistants, help with lesson plan, help with making copies, help with making bulletin boards, reading to the kids, having small groups. It was awesome. They loved it. And so from that program, I've hired 2 actual students that were in the program. And now they're going to school at night to try to get their teaching degree. So I'm excited to see what the future has for them.
That's great. There's a number of programs here in town that can do that. So it's great that the pathways are there. We've just got to get more folks to recognize those pathways and see them, and then see themselves in the classroom and understand the kind of impact you can have. It's just being a teacher, but golly, man, it's such a profession that It's not easy, but it makes such an impact. And so hopefully more can see that and catch that vision and kind of passion that we all have for student success. Travis, I'll ask you the next one. How do we get people not of color to understand and value the need to diversify our teacher workforce?
My first thing is just emphasizing the need, like, for all teachers, like, to be lifelong learners, that you're not set in the, how you are, like, that you're constantly learning about your environment, having personal reflection, constant desire to improve. Trying to think beyond that. Can you say the question one more time? I just want to make sure I grasp.
Yeah, how do we get folks that are not of color to just understand the need for diversity in our teachers and our staffs?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of seeing that dynamic of, like, how influential it can be to have somebody that looks like you around, and seeing those dynamics mirrored, and what sort of ease that puts a student at. It's not that, we're not going to hire, people that aren't of color in positions, but understanding how valuable and how meaningful. I mean, I see, we are a 60 to 70% Hispanic student population on our campus. And I see the impact that our Hispanic teachers have with the students. It's very apparent. And, like, even, just making your effort as a non-person of color, I try to speak as much Spanish as I possibly can with our families, more so with fun with students. They usually are up to date, but even, like, when we have students that are English language learners, making that effort to try to get to know them better and meet them at their level is a game changer. Like, you can see it in literally their face. Like, things change when you try to relate to them on their level.
Yeah, it seems like the key word that jumps out to me there is just being a role model. And when they see that role model, that seems like, it's an obvious thing, but when they can see themselves or they can see a role model, that can change things. Or when somebody speaks a phrase of truth, like in Alonzo's case, when that teacher told him,
Mhm.
you're going to be the president or a teacher, which he may still be president. And so one way or the other, I think that's great to have those role models.
Can I add one anecdotal story really quick? It's just, we had a career day a couple of years ago, and we were short on the number of people that would be there for careers. And I actually used to work as a chef. And so I decided to hop in as one of the roles, and I brought out my chef jacket, my knife bag and everything, and actually demoed in front of the class. And I had all these students like, wait, but you do this. And it's kind of breaking down that wall. Like, no matter what your background is, that, teachers don't pull out their bed at night from the classroom and sleep right there. Like, they're three-dimensional people, and we have all these other aspects to us. And so the more we can tear down those walls between us with our students, the more that, like, that really facilitates, like, a healthy campus.
Well, that's great. Alonzo, I'll ask you the next question. What kind of an impact can that have on student learning when you have diversity in the teachers, the counselors, administrators? How can that affect student learning?
Well, when you have that diversity, I think about what a school is designed to do. It's designed to prepare young minds for tomorrow. And the picture that is painted for those students when they walk in the building every single day can have a huge impact on the optics of what they see. And what I mean by that is, when you have a diverse staff, a diverse workforce, what that does for that younger mind, it helps them to see it. It is hard, it is very challenging to actually picture yourself being something or being someone or practicing a field if you can't see it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is the weirdest thing. And I'm not saying that it works 100% of the time, but it's just that moment of, hey, they're doing it, I can do it. And I'll share this story with you too. And so when I think about that, again, it's hard to be it if you can't see it. But I think about Coach Tara Lloyd, that taught was an AP at university. My first year as an AP at Waco High, I went back to what I saw him do. It was like, I need to do, what would he do in this situation? It was one of, what would Paul Lloyd do? And I was walking around like, okay, I'm walking now. Now, what do you do now? Inspect classrooms, walk around, shit. And so I'm just saying that those moments of things, like I tell my staff all the time, yeah, you teach curriculum and all this, but those moments that you think a kid's not watching, they're watching every single move that you make. And you're actually, like, if a teacher, even if we're not of diverse background or what have you, if that teacher, if the staff at the school is a place where they actually embrace diversity, then what they end up doing is you take these young minds to places outside of their neighborhood. You take them somewhere else, you get them to see that, wait a minute, this is bigger than where I am right now. And so that impact has lasting effects that impact that can show a kid that grows up to be an adult that they can be something different. And a lot of times we hold on to those visual moments and they just pop up out of nowhere. Like, I never thought I was gonna need Coach Lloyd in that way. Right? It wasn't a conversation. It wasn't an thought, but I knew I wanted to be successful. So let me emulate what he's done. And I'm trying to do that today. So, and that's not on Star, just sharing that. That's not a Star. testing humor. So.
That's funny. Yeah, I think it's powerful to think about when if what you said, if they can't see it, a lot of times they have no idea that's even possible. That's why it's powerful to see, when we have President Obama and now, our future vice president now, and to see a woman empowered, somebody of color. I mean, those things matter. You don't think it really does, but it's powerful for every little girl now that sees, oh my gosh, I can vice president. And I told my daughter, yes, you can, baby, you can. And so you better keep your grades up and do well, but you can do it. So I think that representation matters. And this is 2020, we need to really work hard to see that representation across the board. Any more comments to add on that from the group?
One of the things I'd like to mention is if you have children at home and if you observe them playing, and sometimes when they play or the role of someone else. So you can sort of get your truth through watching your kids play to see if the lessons you're teaching or if your behavior is really what you want them to emulate. And we see a lot of that with kids in kindergarten and pre-K and K and early elementary when they in their play and how they interact while they are in that community. So I think that's a big part of seeing what we're doing and reflecting on what we need to be doing to make sure that kids see us in a positive light. So. Absolutely.
What do y'all think? What are let's brainstorm together for a second. If we were to look at, we've got the McLennan County audience here in front of us. Hopefully lots of folks will watch this. How to recruit folks to become teachers? What's the hook in 2020? We're in a pandemic. I know this is crazy times. What's a hook from those of you on this panel that are successful, you're passionate about your job? Give that elevator speech to somebody else to say, hey, give the classroom a try. I want to hear from you guys on that.
I think we have to change the perception of a teacher. A lot of people say, oh, they don't make no money, they're overworked. But it's so rewarding. I mean, it's so rewarding when you see them grown up. When I have a student, she was my student in high school, and now her two daughters come here, pre-K and K. So I love seeing them, and I'm always encouraging them. But it's so rewarding. I don't know how to convey that, but I have a passion for what I do. I'm always telling everyone that it's such a rewarding career to go into, but because of the negative perception and because of social media and, of course, social media is going to only share the negative that's going on in the classrooms and not all the positives and the great things that are happening in the classrooms every single day and how you touch so many lives.
And I think one of the things too is to tell the story. You talked about that elevator speech, and for me, Isabel is a story. I knew Isabel when Isabel was very young and have encouraged her and watched her all the way to where she is now. So when you talk about being proud of the successful people that you have encountered in life, I think we need to tell that story to other recruits to tell them what is possible and to do that one-on-one. And to encourage them to go visit Isabel or go visit some others or go visit Mr. McAdoo. That we remember them when they were in elementary school. So let them tell that story as part of the recruiting process to get other kids who may not be interested in the teacher profession to know that that's possible.
And I think a big
let's hear
impact
from
on
them.
me was seeing Dr. Rowe in the position that she was at when I was a secretary. I remember she was on the 10th floor. And that is the top of the top. And so to have someone like her was very encouraging to me. And seeing other minorities in leadership roles saying, wow, if she did it, I think I can do it. I think I can do it. And really having people that believed in me. My first supervisor was Dr. Yolanda Lopez, and she was over the bilingual department. And I remember her telling me, she said, you know, you're very bright. You pick up things very fast. Have you considered going to college? And I told her, I said, no, that's not for me. You know, my parents were immigrants and English is my second language. That's not for me. No one even talked to me about college and high school. And she said, okay, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you register to MCC so you can start going to classes. And if it wouldn't have been for someone like her that pushed me, that saw something in me, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be here. And so I try to instill that in the students when I taught, and even my students now, even my parents, my children, their friends, everyone. I want them to know that they can do it. You can do it. You can do anything you set your mind to. You can do it. We live in the United States. I mean, it's the country of opportunity. That's what I tell everyone. I remember being my last year teaching at the high school. A student had come over from Mexico, and she was, I think, like in the 9th or 10th grade. And she said, Miss Lozano, of course, in Spanish, she said, I said, so what do you like about this? She said, 2 things. She says, y'all have free toilet paper. She couldn't believe that we provided free toilet paper because where she came from, she either had to carry toilet paper or buy it, purchase it. She said, and she said, the technology. She said, y'all have a cart of brand new iPads. She had never seen an iPad. She had heard of it. But I'm like, people, we are in the country of opportunity. Don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself. That's what I tell everyone.
And I think each one of us, we have to take ownership and commitment to the next generation. I have, I think, 6 students now that I'm working with to prepare them for college. And when I say that, they have no concept yet of where they want to go, what they want to do. I mean, they want to do great things like be a nuclear physicist or physicist or something. And you know, I'm at the point now where we're talking one-on-one with them and one-on-one with, let's be realistic and let's talk about some things that are possible for you to do at the beginning, because you can't start out like that. So let's think about a path that leads you to where you want to go. And in fact, one of them is now at school and pursuing the teaching profession. So I think it's incumbent on us to try to pass that baton on to other students to help their parents help them to get to college. And like I said, I think 6 boys right now, and that's challenging, but I'm going to get them there.
I think of 2. I see folks in the community, and I think of folks that can change careers. And you could tell in somebody, we talk to them 2 minutes, and I can go, man, you can be a good teacher. I can just tell by the way you engage somebody, the way you're talking. And I thought the same thing. I thought, I can't teach a content. I'm not good at math or science. And I went to a job fair, and they figured out I was bilingual. Man, I was so popular, and I had so many friends. And I didn't realize the kind of impact just my personality had with high school students. And we got along really well. I say it's because my maturity level is the same as high school kids, so we got along really well. But
It's
I don't know how
relationships.
but it helps to be connected like that. But I think there's a lot of folks out there that are in a job, in a career, and go, man, this is not for me. And man, if you can engage people, you have a heart for people, you like kids. You know, I'm not really elementary kind of guy. I'm more the secondary kind of guy. If you like kids at some end of the spectrum, I'd give it a chance, because this is the time where, I mean, if you want to have, if you're going to go home and know you made an impact on your job, teaching is for you, because you can every day have an impact on those 100 kids in your roster that year. And then you compound that over a couple of years. Now you've impacted how many kids and how many futures. And that's what kind of always drove me to go from wanting to be, you know, a teacher, and then, hey, I want to impact a little bit more. Let me become an assistant principal, you know, let me get some more schooling in. And you climb the ladder like that. And you realize you look back, and I've got, I mean, so many kids now that are my friends that are, you know, making more money than me, and they're adults now and they got kids, and it's just such a rewarding profession. So I encourage those listening in, there's a way to do that. There's a great community college in town, an alternative certification program you can go through, and they would love to have you. And these districts, not only Waco, but the other districts, would love to have you as well. And I think some people think that the classrooms the kids are bad and they're not listening. And I tell folks all the time, like, we're in great hands. This generation is super talented, super
Exactly.
talented. And they're interesting and they're different. I mean, they're not like we were. I mean, I get that, you know, but it's a wonderful generation to be around. And I encourage anybody to give it a chance. It's worth it, in my opinion.
I agree.
We're coming up on kind of our last little bit of time together. Is there any questions I should have asked, I mean, to this group and this conversation? Anything I missed out y'all can think of, y'all want to share with the group and with this call?
Mm.
So we're looking up on wrapping up the second semester of a full COVID year. I really do wish each and every one of y'all the best of luck as you're leading campuses, as you're interacting, as you're mentoring, Dr. Rowe. What y'all are doing and the imprints you have, the fingerprints on people, is just, you can't measure it. It's incredible. And so I really am thankful for all your work and all that. Had a question come through, actually. So here's a question for the group before we wrap this up. What are ways that community partners can engage with our schools with the lens on equity? How can community partners engage with our schools?
One way that I would suggest is to come to the school, come to school, and get to know the principal, get to know the staff, and encourage them to walk you through, let you get familiar with what the school is all about. Talk to them a little bit about what the goal of the school is and what their mission and where they're headed, and then talk about ways that you can fit into whatever that is that's their plan for the year. But I would suggest going to the school, getting with the principal, finding out their improvement plan, and seeing where you can fit in. It could be a big fit, it could be a little fit, but you being there makes the difference.
We currently have 4 churches in our community that are adopted school, and it makes such a big difference. They provide backpacks for our kids. Earlier this week, there was one church that donated pallets of bananas for our teachers. Bananas, they were organic bananas, but something as simple as even just bananas. Another church, they heard that we're doing a food drive for one of the local churches that has a food pantry. And so they texted me, they said, hey, Miss Lozano, we'll give a pizza party to the classroom that collects the most cans. So they're very involved in our campus. And so we're very blessed to have our churches and really just prayers right now. And just the prayers are wow. I mean, I couldn't do it without everybody praying over our campus, over our staff, our children, and we feel it and we see it every day.
I'm the adopt a school specialist for our campus as well at Indian Spring Middle School. And let's see if I can make McAdoo laugh here, but show some love to middle schools, because community partnerships is hard. Like, people love elementary schools and all the little kids. And they, are thinking about high school. These kids got to transition out. Middle school is a hard place to develop community partnerships. So show us some love, reach out to us, figure out how you can plug in. Just like Dr. Rowe mentioned, talk with school and be open about, like, what do you have to offer? Not everybody's offering a financial gift, or donations, and figuring out some sort of way and just kind of developing that relationship and working with us to find a good place to fit in. And I will say it's harder this year because of COVID, having volunteers on campus, for Waco ISD is a no-go. And so that's really tricky in developing that, but there's still ways you can help.
That's a great point. I think is understanding that we're in this together. It takes a community. It takes all of us to jump into this, and we want what's best for all of our students and all of our kids, because it is truly the future. And so they're starting here. Guys, we're up on our time. Thank you so much for this time. It's been a great conversation. Again, best of luck as this semester ends. We kick off a new one with endurance, and best wishes. So thank y'all. At this time, I want to introduce Natalie Mora. She's an intern with the Baylor Center for Church and Community Impact. And she's going to come on now and share with us something.
Thank you, Herman. So what should we do with this information that we have heard? What is our calling or our call to action as people of faith? How can we change the narrative? So I'm reminded of the story in Mark 9 when Jesus' disciples are discussing who the greatest one is. And Jesus asks them what they've been discussing about, and they remain silent. And he goes and he tells them, if anyone would be first, he must be last of all and servant of all. And then taking a child in his arms, he says to them, whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. And whoever receives me receives not me, but him who sent me. You see, a child in that time was seen as one of the least valuable members of society. Jesus was calling his disciples to take a look to see who they were receiving, whose interests did they have in mind, their own or those of the most vulnerable in their community. Today, I heard this quote from Brian Stevenson that I would like to share with you. And he said, finally, I've come to believe that the true measure of our commitment to justice, the character of our society, our commitment to the rule of law, fairness, and equality cannot be measured by how we treat the rich, the powerful, the privileged, and the respected among us. The true measure of our character is how we treat the poor, the disfavored, the accused, the incarcerated, and the condemned. As people of faith, our call to action is to be seekers of equity. And as Jesus wrapped his arms around that child, the person whom society had given the least value and worth, and as he challenged his disciples to serve, we too are challenged to serve our city. And that can be in the form of seeking that every child is served with equal dignity and worth. It can be by encouraging the teachers in our own congregations. It may be by advocating and partnering with the local school in your community. And even as simple as donating bananas, like Ms. Luzano mentioned. So, Cuevas, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Herman. Thank you, Travis, Alonzo, Isabel, and Dr. Rowe. Thank you all for your great words shared tonight to help our community envision equity. The words that were shared amongst the panelists are things that we need to keep with us, things we need to build upon, things we need to run with and grow with, and things we need to apply within our life and our day-to-day interactions within our schooling system, just with our general educational community. Again, we are appreciative of everyone who was able to log on and to view this particular initiative and view this particular website. I'm sorry, this panel discussion. But I also want to let you all know that it doesn't stop here. That there are opportunities to engage in our community to help play an active role in envisioning equity. One that's really, really big and close to home, and for me, is the Prosper Waco working groups. So for those who are interested in identifying what can you all do today, we encourage you to take down this website and to look into these working groups and to identify where do you fit in. I also want to let you know that this is the second in a series of Envision Equity events. And so we'll have some future ones coming up looking at economic opportunity and criminal justice. We have also had a previous one looking at health. And so you can view all of those Envision Equity recordings and videos and panel discussions at our website, baylor.edu/external affairs. And we just ask you to continue to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Solid Gold Neighbor as we work day to day to connect the Baylor community with the Waco community. Again, we say thank you for your time. Thank you for your joining us on this journey. And thank you for the grace that you all are willing to give us as we try to continue to figure out the best way to envision equity. Everyone have a great evening. Good night.